Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this session on automation and e-commerce, the future of supply chain by Stellium and SAP. At the bottom of your screen, you see these little icons called application widgets. All these widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can enlarge your views by clicking on the square in the top right corner of the windows. And if you're watching this event from your mobile device, please make sure to open your media player to view the webcams. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A box on your screen, and these questions will be sent to the webinar team only and are not visible for other attendees. We will try to answer these during the webinar or at the end of the presentation, but if a fuller answer is needed or if we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know that we do capture all questions. Now, without further ado, I hand over to Rajiv.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to this world of automation and e-commerce. Thanks to Stellium and SAP for organizing such a wonderful webinar. And what could be better than now facing this COVID-19 pandemic to go into the deep of this. So we have some best brains available with us to talk about it. This COVID-19 pandemic has hit our global trade and investment at an unprecedented speed and scale. We have seen how multinational companies initially faced the supply shock, and the production got disrupted. Immediately after that, as the pandemic started growing all over the world, the demand shock also started coming in. The governments, business, and individual consumers, they all struggled even how to get their basic products and materials, even the essential foods and groceries. And as more and more lockdown happened everywhere else, we found one thing, the fragility of this modern supply chain. We suddenly find that we need to design it smarter, stronger, diverse, and more resilient so that, in terms of crisis, it can come into working without disrupting us. So that's the vision, that's the agenda for today's discussion. Creating smart and nimble supply chains is the key for building a global trade and investment network that's capable of weathering future storms. This webinar is an attempt to bring together leading supply chain experts and envision the future of supply chain with them. Let me take one by one these experts. Let me introduce Georg Misalis. Georg, he has a background in warehouse management for more than 26 years. He started his career as an SAP consultant and project manager at SAP Partners and was involved in multiple SAP implementations with very focus on materials management and warehouse logistics. Georg has joined SAP Consulting way back in 2005, where he was acting as a senior consultant and project manager in various international implementations of extended warehouse management. Since 2013, Georg is responsible as a chief product owner of the future roadmap of SAP Extended Warehouse Management. We can call him father of EWMS in SAP. Let me welcome Anand Maithani. Anand Maithani is currently head of supply chain, IT and project office at Apollo Tyres. He has seen a lot of supply chain management operations and planning at Philips and Pepsi before he joined Apollo. At Apollo, since 2011, when he joined there, he initiated a large-scale supply chain transformation exercise which yielded impressive results. He firmly believes in the power of technology to solve complex problems in scale and complexity. Let me welcome Rajiv Jodhapur, my boss at Bajaj Auto. Rajiv is the group CIO for Bajaj Auto. He started his career in research on non-conventional energy sources, solar, biomass, agro-based gasification, and fermentation technology. His mind is very innovative and explorative. 12 years at Mercedes-Benz gave him the start of IT career. After that, he joined Bajaj Auto. His focus has been embracing new age technologies, RPA, IoT, analytics, He had brought many such new age technologies to Bajaj Auto. His idea is to make business processes more agile and reliable. He knows how deep is the partner ecosystems in Bajaj, both in inbound and outbound. And its vision to achieve state-of-art synchronization across the extended ecosystem is very close to his heart. Rajiv also has another angle to him. He's a keen reader of philosophy and human behavior, and he blends philosophy with professionalism beautifully. Then I come to James Hendrickson. James Hendrickson has 20 years and pure technology. 13 years he had new product development at Vocolect, Intermac, and now he is in Honeywell. He's a thought leader on ubiquitous computing, wearable computing, workflow mapping, voice-based user interfaces. So he brings state-of-the-art technology to supply chain. He's leading the development of next-generation products and to bring powerful and new solutions to the distribution centers of the future. Let me welcome Bir Singh, the co-founder of Adverb Technologies, making waves in the market. He has got extensive experience in setting up some of the most advanced manufacturing facilities for Asian Paints, ITC, and various such big companies. And he has worked very closely with Reliance, Hindustan Unilever, Coca-Cola, Marico, Flipkart, Amazon, and transformed their supply chain and material handling capability. He sets up state-of-the-art facilities for manufacturing. With extensive product portfolio, Adverb is having a big global vision. They want to make, they have a motto called Reimagine Motion. They want to become the biggest robotic companies in the world. Let me welcome our youngest panelist, Mr. Asim Behra. He is singularly responsible for bringing Daifuku to India, the intralogistic automation field. He had done the ground up work here. He is also on the board of Vega Conveyors and Automations. He's hard into intralogistics automations. And from 2011 onwards, he's pursuing that. He is creating the market in India and is very close to this kind of innovations. Last but not least, is Randeep Nambiar. He's the co-founder of Stellium. He's a thought and practice leadership in supply chain consulting space. He had been part of big 5 consulting companies like KPMG, PwC, Bearing Point. He's very enthusiastic about digital transformations, and he has done that with many implementations across the globe. His vision for Stellium is to become a global supply chain partner of choice for the next generation business. So he's here to give us his vision about how to bring cutting-edge technology and innovation to this space. I will slightly introduce myself. I have 35 years of experience. I just retired yesterday from Bajaj Auto as a vice president. And I have worked in 2 sectors. One is aerospace and second is automotive. I blended both. So I have worked on various aspects of digitizing the manufacturing processes, apart from handling core software engineering. I work closely with McKinsey's, PwC's, and IBM's of the world. With this, I end my introduction of the panelists. I will start my questionnaire to my panelists. So my first question is to Rajiv. Rajiv, automation means to many people many things. Traditionally, we feel automation means big machineries with huge investment, capital intensive. What's your thought about this in current scenario?
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv, for the introduction. And as you said, I've done philosophy with technology and human behavior. So my answer will encompass all these 3. So as you said, traditionally when we think of automation, we think of big machines, we think of heavy material equipments, we think of long conveyors. But when we essentially step back and look at the purpose of automation, I believe philosophically that everything is driven by a purpose. So earlier, I would like to believe that the purpose one had in mind was the ability of the factories to produce goods and services at scale and with a certain minimum required quality at a cost which they believe the customers would be willing to pay. So the mental model here is that factories are like gods, and customers are privileged to get whatever offerings the gods could bestow on them. So this is just to extend the analogy to make the point clear. And therefore, the purpose of automation in this mental model is all about developing capability to produce goods at scale, at cost, with the manufacturing with the manufacturing factory in mind as the center of the universe. And with time, their gaze started expanding to their vendors, to their distribution channels, and therefore we had a lot of what we used to think of as automation, integrating the supply chain, integrating distribution. My belief is in all of this, we left out the customers. So the customer was at the receiving end of things, and whatever best this group of organizations or this group that we can loosely call a system was capable of delivering, the customers would then have a limited choice and they would sort of get it. Cut to the present. Now, the way I see it is the gods are fighting amongst themselves. They are no longer gods. The whole supply chain is getting jittery. Their whole they are not organized. They are sort of fighting amongst themselves. And the influence of the customer is far higher than what it was before. So earlier, if I have to give a very simple example, if there were, let's say, 5 dealerships dealership you would prefer, he would mentally think, okay, this dealer is giving me a cup of tea and he's welcoming me very well. Therefore, I would like to go and get my bike serviced at that dealership. And therefore, the whole concept was for the supply chain to say, okay, how can I better serve tea? How can I better make comfort and all? But the customer never had a voice on what the product should do. Right? So the product specs, or what is it that the customer really wants or needs, or does he have a say in what services should be given? There was no say there. But in the present, that is no longer true. And therefore, the whole supply chain is now flipped upside down. And now the fundamental philosophy of the supply chain has now been overturned. And now the philosophy is, how do I develop my capability to not only serve what the customer is demanding today, but also to anticipate his needs and be prepared? Because I have no time to start building my capability after the demand has been recognized. And therefore, automation, when we think in today's terms, if there are 2 words I have to describe automation, the purpose of automation has to be to develop versatility in the entire system. That's first. And second, resilience. And how do I differentiate the two? Versatility is all about flourishing in uncertainty. So the more uncertain the situation, the better is the performance. So that is how I would define versatility. And an organization or a system which is more versatile than others will definitely flourish in these uncertain times. And the second plank of automation, the purpose of automation is resilience. And the way I define resilience is the ability to continue to deliver independent of any obstacles that come in between. And the current COVID situation is a very classic example of people who had resilient supply chain processes, who had resilient partners, found a way to flourish in the face of COVID crisis. And people who were not resilient enough suddenly found their hands and legs tied, and then they had to sort of scamper, do their best. But at the end, really, it became a revival for some, but it became an ocean of opportunity for the others. So that's how I view automation.
Beautiful. I think we got the starting very well. That automation does not mean very heavy industry or heavy machineries automations. Automation means ability to be resilient, ability to be versatile in the very uncertain situations. Asim, your passion is automation, and you are the person who did the ground up of Daifuku here. And this, in the COVID, all of a sudden the e-commerce and automation became extremely relevant. Your thought on this, how this is now contextually related, COVID and e-commerce and automation. Can you enlighten us? Asim, to you. Asim, are you there? You have to unmute yourself. Asim, are you there? In case Asim is taking some time, then I will move to the next one. My next question is to Mr. Birsi. Mr. Birsi, it is imperative that there is is Asim there?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay.
Sure. I can hear you.
Asim, you are able to participate now? Can I ask you the question? Or will you take the question? Okay.
I'll take the question, no problem.
You will take the question. Who? Veer? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is imperative that there is a distinct difference between regions, countries, and even within regions. You started an automation company in India, and your heart is into automations, and you have built factories with automations, and you are associated with big guns like Hindustan, Unilever, Asian Paints, ITC. So tell me, in this emerging economies, which is very price sensitive, how do you sell this concept? How do you make it more adaptable?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rajiv. First of all, thank to Stellium and SAP for giving us this opportunity. So my view about automation, first of all, we need to see automation in totality, because piecemeal approach will never justify investment in emerging market and cost-sensitive market like ours. So unlike developed market where automation cost is just justified by the manpower, but this thing will not work in this area. So when I say we need to see it in totality, that means we need to see what we are saving just because of automation. Automation gives us opportunity to use the volumetric space. It gives us opportunity to make our operations. It reduces the rework and
Your voice is breaking.
all these things together. Now it's okay?
Yeah, but now it is okay. You have to repeat.
So what am I saying? So we need to see automation in totality. Automation is not just about saving manpower. It's about increasing the efficiencies. It's about increasing the volumetric utilization of the space. It's about reduction in the rework. It's about the agility in the operation, accuracy of dispatches, and the safety in the complete operation. So when we put all these things together, I think that automation can be justified in any market and to any customer. In my earlier role when I used to be a customer, so I never used to justify ROI or IRR to my management because we used to see things in totality. So that's the way we were able to do a lot of automation in my previous organization. So if you see, so now in India also, apart from all these things, now in India or the economies like us, so consolidation is happening because of GSTs. And demand is going high, because of e-commerce operations and all these things. And now, in all these scenarios, if you need to keep your OTIF quite high with manual warehouses, I don't think it would be possible. So scale, cost of automation, considering the totality, throughput, all these things, if we put together, justifies the automation in our kind of market also. So when we started, when we started Adverb, so we thought automation is not only about mechanizing the operation. It is also about improving the productivity of human being.
And quality, yes.
So also automation for us. So we thought like new technologies like AI, natural language processing, all these things if we will bring, and if this can improve the productivity of human being, it's again automation for us. So some of our products like multi-pallet in any warehouse by 6 to 7 times to the conventional system, the way we are storing. Then a shuttle system, by using system, manpower can pick more than 1,000 lines per hour. And similarly, pick by voice, pick by light. So all these things basically improve the productivity of the manpower. So apart from this, I would like to give example, so because of the daunting effect of all these automobile companies, the customer have now understood the requirement of using spare OEM spares. So all the consolidation along with this use of original spares, so there is a huge requirement, spare part warehouses are becoming huge. So our systems like carton shuttles, goods to person robot, pick to light technology, pick by voice technology, this makes a perfect mix so that the throughput and productivity of this warehouses can be improved. So we see a lot of opportunity. Now, normally when we design warehouse, we also consider a couple of things, like how many times we touches the goods. So because each time when we touch the good, it's a cost. So we try to minimize this, but considering COVID situation, each time when someone touches the goods, increase the probability of getting infected.
Yeah.
So now,
Yes.
if we reduce the touches of human being in the warehouse, then definitely it will reduce the possibility of getting infected. So in all this way, I think automation is making sense now. Thank you.
So this is a myth that automation means huge money, huge cost. In fact, actually, the productivity, quality, delivery, and the OTIF goes off so well that the per piece cost is so low, and your competitive advantage goes off. Thanks be. Now, understanding that automation is so much need for us, let's look at automotive industry. My question is to Anand Maithiani. Anand, you are from Apollo Tires. So my question to you is that e-commerce, we have found, today, almost everything we buy through e-commerce, okay, including drugs, pharmaceuticals, electronics, everything, all retail. But unfortunately, automotive, the process has remained very, very archaic. 122 years since 1898, the first dealership opened at Cleveland, and today it is still a brick and mortar. There was some prediction about 2018, the USA will see about 1% of its sale through online, which is about $15 billion. But then I believe, and India, it is so nascent, I believe this is going to play a bigger role, but we don't know. So we'd like to know from you how automotive online sale is going to pan out, particularly post-COVID.
So couple of things actually, Rajiv. One, of course, when it comes to tires specifically, while you may buy online, but then eventually you have to fit it and get the balancing and the alignment done. And as such, at least in India, we are not a great DIY society. So one can't imagine oneself doing your own plumbing or your electricity, etc. There's a whole app dedicated to make your life easier for that, right? So while in case of tires, you might still buy it online, but then eventually you have to get it fitted at your neighborhood brick and mortar store. So that's one thing that sort of prevents online purchase, because the entire experience obviously is not use that word, and it's not contactless either. So eventually you will have to go and get it fitted. That's one part. Coming to cars again, see, buying a car compared to tires is far more high involvement with the consumer, but it's a big ticket purchase. So buying it online becomes slightly difficult, but to my mind, I think that's I have no doubt that that will happen. I am told that there's a study by Frost and Sullivan which says I think 1.5 million cars will be sold online by 2035. There was another study which said, while okay, all of us do research a car online while purchasing, but almost 45% of respondents were open to buying the car itself online. So from that point of view, in my mind, there is no doubt that that time will come. Obviously, it will be not as fast as, let us say, groceries that we buy. One, because in terms of groceries, you are using the brand every day, etc. So you know what you will buy. But car is not something that you're going to buy every. Off and on. So it's not that it's a repeat purchase many times, and of course it's far more high involvement than your regular FMCG products. So you are wanting to go through the entire experience. So from that point of view, I think it will take time, but in my mind there is no doubt that this will happen. It's only a question of time.
Very nice. I mean, it's a slow changing behavior. Actually, online cannot be so easily be replaced as far as when touch and feel is such a great important stuff. Online to offline, offline to online, the kind of mix can go up. Asim, are you there? Will you be able to take my question now?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I was finally able to figure out the mute button. Sorry about that.
Asim, just to put back this what Anand has told now. He said, see, just my last assignment in Bajaj was that to create an e-com for our Chetak EV. You know, Tesla sells such nice online sales, right? And during COVID, actually, we all shut down. Now we're opening up. What's your take? I mean, take on e-commerce, take on automation, in general, across the globe, post-COVID, the kind of lessons that we got now, the kind of fear pandemic that has also happened, and the new normals that is setting in, and new behaviors that is coming out. What's your take? And you have done so much of automation for Daifuku, particularly intralogistics here. So how do you think it is contextually now fitting into the situation?
Thank you for the question, sir. And I apologize for the unmuting that I couldn't do earlier. So I appreciate the question, and I think my predecessors have kind of set the stage for this question to me. So obviously, automation, everything has to have a return of investment. And typically, when you speak of different kinds of intralogistics automation, the return of investment is a very easy factor to calculate in the developed world, let's say. And a lot of it is because, okay, you've invested X amount of millions of dollars, but yeah, you were able to reduce the dependency on manpower or not hire that many people. So yes, by 3 years or 4 years, you can get your ROI. But that is something that you don't see specifically in India, mostly because of the wages that exist, right? So therefore, the automation having a easy ROI is definitely not the case. So I'll come back on this a little bit later, but if we look at the global markets, so Daifuku is present pretty much all over the globe. And so if I speak about the US market, we are actually seeing a spike in the need for automation solutions. And a lot of this is not because the ROI in the US didn't exist. It always was there. It was just a question of people believing in automation, intralogistics automation, as they do, let's say, in Europe or Japan. Right. In Europe, a lot of the intralogistics automation goes on mostly because of very strict labor laws of how much you can lift, how much you can turn, how much you can bend. So there's a lot of human labor laws that are there, and to kind of get your work done while keeping that in place, you have a lot of intralogistics automation. In Japan, for example, it's an aging population, and Japan, it's kind of the world's factory when it comes to a lot of things. So they needed to have a lot of intralogistics automation because it's a very small country, a lot of people, a lot of manufacturing going on. In the US, so the ROI was always there, but people didn't believe it. But we're seeing a spike now because people have understood that, they have to have a plan B. They have to put in more sort of automation because of things like social distancing, because of things that, you have to operate your factories with limited number of people, so on and so forth. So different regions have different take on it. So now if I come back to India, I think e-commerce has proven itself as a very big driver in these times. I think be it your essentials, your non-essentials that the government had categorized, and how people are actually receiving this stuff. Now when the stores were closed, the only choice you had was to order online. When the stores were closed, you only had a big basket to come and deliver. I live in Bombay, and Bombay is full of apartments, right? And apartments, the volume is high, the density is high, so the apartment organized sellers to come and, hawkers to come and sell once a week or something of that sort. So I think the catalyst that e-commerce needed for growth in India, COVID-19 has shown us that.
Thanks, Azim. Actually, when the COVID started, after some time, I was telling my wife that will we get our essentials there or not? But basically, it's so good. Even the society started getting, big baskets into the society. And the mandi started coming into the society. And all that kinds of entire supply chain has to be handled. And you need a kind of an automation across the whole gamut of this thing. So that brings me to the next question in the mind, that we are getting used to buying things from the house. Now the vegetable mandis to groceries to electronics to everything that we are buying from this house. And we are very often into the digital world, into various kinds of digital engagements. The consumer behavior in the millennials, Gen X and Gen Z, all the XY Gen generations they call about. Their behavior are changing, and accordingly, if you get stuck in the past and you just think designing the old way, your marketing and your product, you may get stuck in the past only. So this is a question to both Rajiv as well as Anand. And how this consumer behavior is going to drive the supply chain, automation and e-commerce as we go along in the future. To both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, Rajiv.
As you said rightly, Rajiv, consumer preferences and the way they are preferring to engage with the brand is changing. However, I believe at the fundamentals, nothing has changed. A person, as a human being, always wanted to do things in the most comfortable way, in the most, let us say, convenient way. It's just that today the technologies that are on offer, that the capabilities that are existing out there, are making the manifestation of this fundamental behavior more and more, let's say, in different ways. Okay, so let's take an example of, and since we are talking of motorcycle, we could talk of an automotive. We always believed that a customer desired to have a physical feel, look and feel of the vehicle before he actually buys one. Now, the only way one could do that in earlier times was to physically touch the vehicle and experience it. But what modern technologies are enabling is that you can get a better or even a same or even a better experience through use of all these technologies like AR or VR. You can actually visualize how the interior of the vehicle is functioning, what is under the hood. Something which is fascinating for young people, where the minds are open, curious, they want to know how things work. And therefore, what I believe is it is a great opportunity for brands, for manufacturers, for supply chain to leverage on all these new capabilities that are available and really capitalize and monetize on the fundamental human tendency to do things in the most convenient way. The key difference and the key capabilities is the ability of organizations to detect the signal from the noise. And this is where I would quote our MD, Rajiv Bajaj, who has said in so many forums, that if you feel the problem is very complex, then fundamentally you have not understood the problem. And if you really understand the problem at its fundamentals, then the solution to that is essentially very simple. And that is a philosophy I also subscribe to in these times when we feel that there are so many challenges and we have all these customer behavior changing and brand having to let go of the old ways. It is essentially we are not understanding the need of the customer. What does he actually need? And if we get this insight, the solutions are very, obvious, I would say.
Ishan?
See, my view, you will have all types of consumers coexisting. So whether they are digital natives or immigrants or digital aliens, if there's a word like this, so complete Luddites, and eventually, like even Rajiv mentioned, that you have to service all customers, right? So eventually what will come out will be like an omni-channel service model for the customer, because because there will be people who will want to touch the vehicle when they want to buy it, and there will be people who are open to using newer avenues like AR, VR to experience the vehicle before they buy it. So, for example, I think Tesla did this when China opened in April. They ran this, they live streamed an event where a key influencer actually showed all the features of a Model S, and there were like 4 million people looking at it at that point of time. So there are people like that, and there will exist people who will want to physically touch, especially since when they're putting a fair amount of investment into a vehicle. In India, a vehicle is still, for many people, it's still an emotional purchase. It's not just buying a vehicle. It's also what can I say? Your entry to the middle class or to affluence. If I may say that. So that emotion is still attached with the vehicle, and therefore you will have people who will need both type of experiences, and the only way to manage that for an organization would be to create omni-channel capabilities or touch points for their customers. Secondly, I think what is also going to happen is that a large part of manufacturing companies will actually now look at service for a bulk of their revenue and their profitability. So you might have 20-25% of your revenues coming from service, and a larger part, disproportionate part of that revenue being contributed from service for profit. And that again would make it easier for to be able to sort of touch the customer without any physical contact. So from my point of view, you will have both type of supply chains existing, and eventually maybe you will have a shift from physical to digital, but there's going to be a fair amount of time before that happens, at least in automobiles. And even then, I don't think it'll be 0 or 1. You will still the balance of weight may shift from one to another, but I think we're a long time away when we have just a digital or a contactless supply chain. So even now, from inquiry to purchase, there are 28 points, touch points with the customer, and still I think 21 or 22 of them are digital. That still leaves like a fourth of touch points with the customer where physical touch will happen. So from that point of view, I think you will have a shift. One, it will never be complete. The other, it's going to take a lot of time, at least when it comes to auto.
Yes, I mean, that's true. I mean, nobody can replace the physical touch, feel, and because it's such a huge investment. But a lot of drudgery work, which we try and do at dealership, all this documentation, e-KYC, the form filling, the insurance buying, and the finance. All these are probably going to go away into digital mode. And by taking the from this, that no matter that there is a physical need, there are going to be a lot of digital footprint in buying of automotives. We'll find that there are a lot of players involved in the fulfillment. The question is to Rajiv, that we have dealers, we have customers, we have suppliers, we have various kinds of fulfillment, and the consumer is now looking at omni-channel, 24/7, and various kinds of engagement. It's not only purchasing, it is also a service, warranty, various things are coming up. It's no more a linear kind of relationship that a supplier supplies to plant and plant supplies to dealer and dealer sends it to the customer and customer finds a problem, comes to dealer. It's going to be a multi-dimensional, multi-stakeholder, all coming to the serving customers with the value system of the OEM brand. So how is it going to play out? How are they going to brace up the new demands from the market, the faster to customers and agility to the customer? It's to Rajiv.
Yeah, so my view on this is it is no longer a fragmented chain with very clearly defined links, where one link hooks up with the other link. I tend to imagine it more like a neural network, where there are multiple branches and multiple connections. And at the end of the network, the output which comes out has to be very consistent, has to be very quick. So you need agility, you need responsiveness. Now, to get to this state, I believe the core of it is trust. Unless each part of the ecosystem, each part of the neurons, each of the connections implicitly trust each other, this network cannot function. And in the automotive channel, when we look at our own number of stakeholders, we have, we can just go on building the network. We have the OEM, we have our vendors ecosystem, we have the distributor channels, we have the dealers, his sub-dealers, his command area, and the customer. And therefore, at the crux of all this is trust, and trust on the information which is flowing through these networks. Because essentially it is information which is driving the whole wheels of economy. It's information which is driving fulfillment, which is driving demand signals. And if at every connection we look back and begin to doubt, is this really right? Is this really what is happening? Do I have a control mechanisms? If that sort of distrust exists in the whole ecosystem, the supply chain will be like a dinosaur and it will collapse. So my take on the future, or on how I see the supply chain evolving, is building mechanisms, building all these systems where trust which cannot be compromised. Then there are mechanisms which can easily detect and isolate that part of the system.
Very nice. So we can call it as a trust economy, and trust to customer can come only when the entire ecosystem in the neural system that you have described, if they are very responsive and very, very agile and very, very fast in solving the problems to the customer, we cannot survive. So that brings the next big question. If the entire stakeholders have to be that agile and that fast, and the neural system has to talk to each other, it is the automation again. The way automation Rajiv has described earlier as resilient and flexible, the way automation even Asim has described as intralogistics, so that human interventions are also used and productivity has gone up. That means the question that comes to my mind, Asim, is that again the entire manufacturing has gone to the SMEs. SMEs are the backbones of this value chain, and the value chain is today demanding the mass customizations, faster delivery, and uncertain future. The demands can go up and down at any point of time. And it all demands very flexible manufacturing system so that, you cut down on the cost and yet be very responsive. So what's your take on that? Are our SMEs, particularly in India, are ready to embrace such technologies, flexible automations, manufacturing?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And I think I'm just going to build up on what Mr. Rajiv said, that trust is the most important commodity. So I would say in India, right now, more than 80% of our consumer base are the small and medium, the SMEs. And for me, the definition of SME is anybody less than $1 billion in terms of the revenue that they do. Anything bigger than $1 billion is a bigger size company. And 80% of my customers are which fall, in the less than $1 billion. And for them, yes, being agile is very important. For them, growth also is equally important, but they also have a challenge that, as you know, for any manufacturer, you have to be, as long as you're close to your customer, that's when you can be profitable. You can produce something that the customer needs. And India is a big, varied country where if you're, let's say, in the food business, if you're in the chips business, the flavor of chips will change every state. So what works, let's say, in Gujarat may not work in Orissa, example. So you have to be close to the customer. You have to know their local taste. You have to be flexible. And the SMEs, while they are able to cater to their regional taste, when they have to go pan-India, that's when there comes a challenge. The biggest problem for them is the management challenge. Everybody who graduates out of a college or a university wants to work for a big company, a company like yours, or the ITCs of the world, or the Asian Paints of the world. You will not end up working in a smaller SME as your first choice. So for them, they want to grow. They want to develop a factory in a new place, but they have no choice. But they have to grow because that's where the market. So that's when a lot of the automation comes in. So them investing in automation helps them run a factory in a different state, monitor what's going on whilst not having to travel there every day, or while not having a very active management team set up there on the ground. So the SMEs are, I think, the true spirit of the Indian manufacturing. They are the future. And I think them adopting automation is purely based on trust. So most of my customers, you won't believe, they haven't seen the stuff that we deploy in their factories. They only trust the PowerPoint and the word of mouth. They haven't even gone to, let's say, our demo center in Japan. Yet they have given us an order, they've invested crores with us. So the trust is a very big factor. If you can go see a problem that they may not even know they have and find a solution and make them believe, I think they are the fastest adopters of automation in India.
Very nice. I mean, we cannot say small and medium industry means small and medium automation. No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely no.
So that small and medium tag will be different. You have to be qualitatively good. You have to be productively good. No matter how small is your revenue or how focused is your market, but you have to be competitive. So that brings again the focus onto this automation thing. Now, as I know, there are various types of automation. So the question to be, BID is making so many factories. So the question comes as, there are fixed automations, there are hard automations, which is called fixed, and soft automations, programmable. And also there are flexible automations that you can change the setting faster. You can do whatever you want to do in one single setup, one single machine. So, but people are confused typically, and SME cannot afford to make mistakes. So let's know what are the different types of automations in the world and how are they relevant to us now? Bir, for you. Bir, are you there? Bir, are you there? If Bir is not there, then I may have to go to the next questions.
So what I was saying, so in my earlier response, I said that there is nothing good or bad, or no technology is better than other technology. It has to be good mix of things which can solve the problem of customer. And most of the time, customer problems are unique. So it has to be mix of all the technologies. But I'll just brief you. So when we say hard automation, so hard automation was basically championed by Henry Ford almost a century ago when he started a concept of assembly line car manufacturing process. He used various kind of conveyors to move the car so that people can assemble the car while the car is moving on the conveyor. Later on, it got developed like a lot of sophisticated products like stacker cranes, RGVs. So all these things get added in the interlogistic automation, which we call as a fixed automation. But believe me, so this automation was relevant almost 100 years back, and it is relevant right now also, and it will remain relevant in the next 10 or 15 years also. So hard automation will remain, because like certain times it's a requirement which can be fulfilled only by hard automation. So it will remain. So that is the reason, if you see our product line, we have products like Quadron, MultiPro, Carton Shuttles, Rapido. So all these are when we say is a part of hard automation, which will be fixed and remain in the system for a longer duration. Now coming to the soft or programmable automation, which is basically a software. So if you see in 1970s, 80s, software becomes an integral part of the manufacturing and the warehouse industry. So there are things like warehouse management system, warehouse execution system, manufacturing execution system. So all this so earlier all the material was moving on a physical things, which we call physical automation. But now this software is coming into the picture. So material is moving through the physical automation, but software is capturing each and every information of all this material while it's on the move. So this gives us great advantage in terms of the data which we are capturing. So in this way, software has changed everything. So that's the reason, so we have built a product like warehouse management system, warehouse control system, or warehouse execution system, and all this, there are a lot of platforms like cloud platform, IoT platform. So all this, is making the software part quite strong. Now coming to the flexible automation. So earlier, when when we used to put automation in the factories, we had a plan. Okay, what we will be doing in next 10 years, 15 years. So it was good to have fixed automation, which will keep supporting you for the next 10, 15 years. But now if you see the operation of e-commerce industries, you see the operation of e-grocery industries. So all these industries, they don't know nothing about the future. So today they want conveyor in this area, next day they want conveyor in another area. So they want changes, because the customers who's demanding a lot is changing every day. So now comes the flexible automation. So flexible automation is mostly related to the use of robotics in the field of warehouse. So a lot of various kind of robots are coming, and these robots are becoming powerful day by day because of the computing power, which is when I said talk about software. So that's the reason these robots are also becoming very smart. So by using this robots in the warehouse, you can build a flexible automation. So we also build a lot of products, we have a complete range of robots which can be used in warehouses. But explaining all this kind of automation, my view is that you cannot solve the customer problem with only single kind of automation. It has to be mixed. And at the end of the day, important is not what kind of automation we are putting. Important is what kind of problem we are solving for the customer. So if that problem is solved by the mix of all these things, and the mix has to be appropriate, then it's good for customers and it's good for us also.
That's the key of the entire thing. Automation for the sake of automation is going to be a killer actually. So so hard automation, it has its own context. Soft automation, yes, we know how ubiquitous it is, and then everybody is using it, and it's needed. But when we go to flexible automations and we make it so flexible that your demand for the layout chains, the storage chains, pick, pack, putaways, all that, and then the robotics are doing that, and it's highly programmable, makes you much resilient. either in upside and downside, and you can do that. But as a businessman or as a business process owner, a person may get into a trouble saying that which is the automation is the best for me. It's going to solve my business problem better and make the ROI better, make me more profitable and more acceptable to the context. So this is where the consulting will maybe playing a better role. And I will now ask the question to Randeep. How Stellium is handling this issue in the market? Because I know very well that if you implement without design, what's going to happen? You go ahead and you see one ASRS and put ASRS there, or and just go and implement an EWMS, and you may overkill or underkill, you don't know. So how consulting is going to help the people? What's your take?
Hi, Jenna. Jenna, can you hear me? Jenna, can you hear me?
I'm able to, loud and clear.
Oh, very good, very good. Thanks for having me on this webinar. I really appreciate it, and great question. Jenna, this question is definitely significant within the current context of post-COVID. But more importantly, what I want to highlight is that this is not something that that we have faced as a partner. Our approach to customers in the past who have undertaken automation in the past, who have actually invested quite a bit in automation in the past, is the same thing. I mean, the most important thing that I would like to highlight here is that it is high time for clients to think about how they really want to take system integration work forward. And most important advice as a partner standpoint is to really clients to own and be accountable in the projects that they are going to drive. For example, they really need to invest their manpower, in-house manpower, along with partners, and trust, the word trust that Asim and Rajiv brought up, to really understand the decisions that they are making towards the adoption of technology, be it from an automation standpoint or also from a software perspective. Understand what kind of decisions that they are making. They are not just depending on the software skill set that the partner brings, but more importantly, the domain and consulting capability to help make decisions on the process improvement side and how those processes fits from a decision-making standpoint with respect to implementation of automation technologies and things like that. So one of the key important aspect that we are trying with customers going forward is to bring more awareness of owning the project. And I think it's a big shift that needs to happen going forward, where given the post COVID situation, that the projects has to be owned by the client. They need to have champions created from the beginning, and partners' responsibility going forward is going to be educate the champions that needs to be created within the client with the information that we can bring in front of them. It should not be the case that a partner is looked at for getting SAP skill set. That's not going to help in these kind of warehousing projects. And Jenna, you are a witness of that. And this is 3 years ago that you have witnessed that. So, but it is important that some of the clients, I mean, we had a great experience 3 years ago working with one of the largest and great brand out of India in terms of implementing SAP with, heavy automation. I mean, could be treated as, the point that Hazim brought about. It's not going to be any more about manpower reduction or, the changes that you're seeing from a business standpoint are considerably different. I mean, it's a wake-up call for all businesses to think how how business has to be agile, and from that perspective, as a partner, we are looking at how we can do things better, differently, even though we were doing some of these things in the past 3-4 years. So we're building tools, and we're building methodologies that we're trying to call it as digital implementation methodology, right? So how do we make clients be responsible to do a remote online warehousing visit to construct a report and assessment for a client? I mean, do you really need to go and spend 1 week at a warehouse to do that? Can the champion within the warehouse from the client side walk you through with a tablet and talk about how things are done in the warehouse, and what are the different strategies in place, and how can implementation partners bring a lot of difference in doing how you do things? So it's going to be significant effort from a partner standpoint as well, to help clients succeed in this journey and this dramatic change that they need to bring in to accommodate all these technology needs. So that's what it is, Jenna.
Very good. It takes two to tango, actually, and as you said, you pointed out, I have also learned that. So design has to precede implementation. It's not mere implementation of a SAP technology, or mere consultants are going there and just mapping a process and starting an EWMS implementation there. You have to visualize first things in the mind, then reality in the real state. And as you said, if you have tools for simulations, nothing like it. So, and it makes both the partners, client and the implementation guy, to sit together and look at what KPIs they want to achieve, and design first and then go for implementation. Good. And consulting has to come first in order to make it a successful stuff. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So going to the next one. My question is to George Mesliks from SAP. SAP has now not only a ERP company, it has gone into everything, and we have listened digitality now from every angle, from the front end, back end, from the design, how the fulfillment has to happen, how the warehouse has to be managed, how consumer has to be multi-channel fulfillment has to be done 24/7. So all these technologies are now SAP is trying to give. So we are very eager to know what is SAP trying to do in order to address this very, very omnipresent digitality in the entire supply chain and automation and e-commerce. George, to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me in the call. What's SAP doing? I can definitely say, but I'm sure everybody can say, work very, very hard. And I really have to say, for the last 7 years in my job, I can really assure everybody, SAP has never invested so much in supply chain e-commerce processes as we do currently. And I'm 100% sure if you invite me again next year, I can do the same, and we will even invest more, and with more people, with more teams. In your region, in India, we have multiple teams working on part of our solutions. Our vision is a touchless, self-regulating supply chain. And I really like the term of Rajiv, the neural networks where the single components have to trust each other. And I would like to translate it to our portfolio. We started, as you mentioned, as an ERP company. Since 7 years, we are now offering best of breed in various areas, warehousing, transportation, planning, designing, HR. But I think to meet the current requirements, we can only do it if we bring the ends together and deliver a network which is able to react fast, being very agile on future requirements, but is very stable and very trusted to each other. And I can tell you, this is the biggest investment we are currently doing, bringing the ends closer together, making sure what you know of SAP end to end, it works best from SAP to SAP. What else? I'm fully convinced SAP, we can give you a very, very great foundation for this. We will see more and more moves into cloud native applications to be able to leverage and implement much faster. We will see hybrid system landscapes over the years where stable cores, maybe on-premise, extensions more and more in the cloud to really get speed into projects. I'm also convinced that one of our strategy is our strong ecosystem. And this is the key for us. We are investing, and never as hard as we do currently, but to have a well-educated ecosystem throughout the globe, which understands the software. Somebody said before me, every problem at a customer is unique. And I really can tell. I implemented 15 years. I never seen a twin warehouse. Maybe if somebody in the call wants to invent something, I would recommend it to customers, but all logistics operations are unique as such. So you need good skill sets, good partners. And I'm especially convinced in the last years to have a stable core and giving an easy way to access this core. The term could be an API to build your specific supply chain out of the building blocks SAP delivered is a great thing and the best way forward. But I would also like to add that SAP is developing and guiding differently. When I started, it was build a WMS and make it better and win more customers. Now, in my area, we follow an end-to-end process. We call it design to operate. Design starts getting the customer requirements, building a new product, going to product design, into manufacturing, into logistics, into delivering, and finally operating. And making sure whatever we deliver, this end-to-end process works together so that we can get the usage information of the product, you as a customer ship, and get this back into the cycle of delivering the next set of innovations into the product. So I see these e-commerce trends. We work with big retail customers throughout the world. Everybody tells me we are growing in e-commerce. It's fantastic to see. It's a challenge. And let me add what I could learn. The straightforward process is not what gives us all a headache. It gets really interesting. When the customer says, now I ordered, can I change the delivery window? Can I add another product? Can I change the quantity? Can I cancel? So getting the agility into the process. And this is what is our ambition. And this is where we're working hard in SAP.
Yes. So that's now it is gelling everything well. As Rajiv has told, automation means resilience, automation means flexibility. And SAP is also thinking the same way, going to the cloud, bringing every kinds of flexibility to the customer so that, he can change the order, he can change the date of supply. But that means that at the back end in warehouse, the order fulfillment also will be under severe stress. And that also will be needing a lot of new innovations, how to be flexible enough, how to be resilient enough to adapt such kind of changes into the demand. So one way I have seen, I have Alexa in my house also. So I keep looking at No, I say, Alexa, turn the volume down, go the volume up. Makes it easy, instead of going there and touching it. Okay, that means what? The UX is going to play out a very major role, and conversational UX is going to become a very big role. Post-COVID, it is becoming much more, the face recognition, the voice recognitions, and the GEMS has done tremendous work in this field. So the question to GEMS, how is this conversational UX is going to play out in warehouses and manufacturing, in services and building up, but mostly in the manufacturing space and warehouses? How is it going to make it more agile, more resilient, and more flexible?
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv. Yeah, so I think there's a couple things here, and there are themes that have come up during this call. Hopefully, you all can hear me okay.
I'm
wonderful. Okay, so the themes that I was hearing on this call, and they're ones that I'm hearing across the globe when I talk to other customers. The first is around automation and the importance of that. And the view from Honeywell is that if you can automate, you should. But like all technology implementations, you need to be intentional about how you're doing it. So intentional in terms of what automation choices you're making. And we sort of believe at this point that in most cases, those large conveyor systems, those types of things that we've historically seen, they're not the flexible automation that you would be using now. There's too many options around robotics and types of things like that allow for flexibility to move our businesses and our supply chains at sort of the speed of light or the speed of agility that we need. So starting with that, we should automate wherever we can. However, there's still humans that have to play into this world, and that's incredibly important because we need to make sure that we're applying the human technology, the human beings, where they are most effective. That means not overburdening them with things that are too heavy or repetitive tasks that could be automated. So absolutely automate wherever you can. However, you need to bring in those people and do so intentionally. You need to make intentional technology choices, and you need to do intentional designs in order to be able to weave the humans and the human technology into the automation and ERP host system type things as well. So all of these things need to be orchestrated and brought together in a seamless way. So we believe that's where a voice user interface or user experience, in many, many cases, is the most optimal of interfaces for this future world that we're moving to. Now, we've been doing this for 30 years and getting a lot of powerful productivity and accuracy and safety improvements. I mean, incredibly powerful. But we see the future of this space as one where the human beings that are critical to our supply chain and our value chain experience, that they are given the tools to interact with all the technology around them to be able to do their job most effectively, and most safely, and most productively. And voice is one of the best ways to do that. And when we talk about this, we're talking about it a little differently than what we see with the commercial voice assistants, like Alexa, which hopefully won't go off here in my house. So we're thinking about it differently than that. It is a directed experience. We know enough about our supply chain. We know enough about our SAP implementation. We know enough about how all these things are orchestrated already that we can build intentional, designed systems that direct that worker through those experiences, that they can naturally interact with a robotic system, automation, material handling system, and obviously, most importantly, into their ERP system, and in this case, SAP. So those things are all so critical. The days of us having a single job as a warehouse worker, that we do that job all day long in the same way, are passing us by. We need to be able to respond to the large bulk orders that are going out to distributors, as well as the single each item that is going out to me as a consumer. And it needs to be there on time. It needs to be accurate. We need to be able to hit our delivery windows in order to be able to have this nimble supply chain that these last 3 months, 4 months now have shown is absolutely critical for the global economy to actually function. And then we need to do it in a way that doesn't involve you touching a lot of devices or interacting with a lot of things. We need to make it as contactless as possible. And that's another area where we've seen voice is super critical in order to be able to do that, because you're actually not touching anything during the day. It frees up your hands to be able to pick the product, to direct you around the warehouse without looking down at something. So there's a lot of powerful capabilities of a voice user experience that we need to be very intentional and thoughtful about how we deploy it. And when you do it that way, it is the most powerful solution in supply chain that I've ever seen. And that's what makes us so passionate and so excited about this, and what we can do to really transform the lives of the workers, as well as transform the overall value chain that we all participate in.
Actually, I'm imagining a warehouse which is not extremely populated with human beings, and it's very silent, and the interface between the humans and the machines are so very intentional, the way you are putting it across, so that he speaks and he doesn't have to touch. He just looks at it and speaks something, and accordingly the pick, pack, or put away whatever it is needed in the warehouse, along with the robotics. I'm just imagining the kind of world. When you understand it, it'll be that beautiful to look at. And so that brings the next complex stuff that we are finding. The flexible automation, we need the need of software so much great. I have myself faced the problem. The hardware vendors, they bring their own softwares, and then the softwares like SAP, they bring their softwares. Then they have to talk to each other. So why there is no such a thing that we have one stop shop where everything is possible end to end? Whether it is robotics talking, whether it is the pallet has to be brought out, or whether it is to put up, it to be done, and where I have to do the replenishment. So the entire software integrations end to end would be the biggest challenge that we go forward. So I believe SAP must be thinking about it, and this problem of the customers who have to handle multiple partners, multiple softwares, hardware, software integrations, all that sort of, which I have seen myself. So it is for the George Mercedes for you to answer this question, please, for us.
Yeah, thank you. I hope we have an answer to this. In our warehouse management product, the extended warehouse management, which is my responsibility, we have a layer which we call material flow system. And this material flow system is exactly routing, let's say, the received pallet from production or from outside through conveyor steps into the final bin on a multi-deep, high-rack, or fully automated warehouse. It is part of EWM. It is built in. We see one big benefit. We have one software layer, one product to control the WMS and the warehouse control system in one product. Not every warehouse needs it, but it's part of the code. I'm really happy, beside Daifuku, that many automation vendors have their own EWM competence center and can even implement it specific to their equipment. We are investing into this since 4 years. You don't even need protocol middleware to convert RFC to TCP/IP. So this is available, but this is more the classic warehouse automation, which you invest for 15 years, and you run stable. So we have hundreds of pallets warehouse, shuttle warehouse, mini loads running with this type of integration. In the last years, we could see more and more robotics coming into warehouses. And here we are currently also working on different integration layers. As we might see, as we saw already in automation, you might not have components of a single vendor. So maybe you have a shuttle of vendor A and a high bay pallet of vendor B, or you don't know how your business will change in the next months and years. So maybe you have robotics for transportation from picking to staging or the other way around. And later on, you have a picking robot or a sorting robot and so on. So we are also working in the area of Kubernetes clusters that you can deploy the software on the robotic system and you can distribute the EWM tasks directly. So this is the shop floor layer. As we also think heavily in the last years in the area of manufacturing, and SAP is not only investing in logistics of transportation and planning and warehousing, but also of shop floor manufacturing systems. And also this is a high area of investment. We are launching currently an Industry 4 program with many different projects involved, and you will also see innovations in this area, bringing the manufacturing and the warehouse closer together. If you think in user roles, there is no, especially in manufacturing, there is no, I'm the warehouse worker, I'm the manufacturing worker. So in one user role, you want to control different aspects of your process. And to do this, you need a stable integration. And so also this is, we have an integration to manufacturing and digital manufacturing of SAP systems. And I can tell you, when our integration works, you can easily adopt to your local manufacturing systems if it's not an SAP system as well. So investing in all areas, that's my answer.
Very nice. I mean, if that happens, it will be a new, different world that we'll be seeing it. And a manufacturing worker and a workshop warehouse worker, they can intermingle. And the complex stuff will look simple as a UI. And you can use a robot, so you can use various other things. Makes the warehouse operations much simpler. Okay, fine, very nice. And we are now imagining the future. So my next question is that I see today what is platform yesterday. Today it is commoditized and democratized. If you take Shopify is a place where you get your e-commerce platform ready for use. Today, where housewife wants to sell her pickles made in the house, or she has a small factory where she has produced certain things and she wants to use the local market for selling her products. She can easily go and adopt one of such e-commerce platforms and go ahead and do it. Is this possible in case of automation? Is this kind of democratization is possible, or commoditization is possible in automation, that even small companies can think of plug and fit and start using it? This question is to James. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the comments that Jorg made, I think, line up with this really nicely, because the world is changing on a number of ways. We see that changing on the supply chain, value chain side, where you're merging manufacturing in with the warehouse, and you have all these other players that are coming up, and we as supply chain experts and leaders in the field want to be able to choose best-in-class hardware, software solutions for whatever we're deploying. And we need to have those things as options available to us. So that we're not locked in to a vendor because we chose them 10 years ago when that was the right solution at the time, but didn't evolve or grow with us. And the cost of shifting is too high. So the way we're viewing this is really around what Jorg was talking about, with having APIs that integrate into and open systems that allow you to bring best in breed and best in class technologies and solutions to your supply chain. And the beautiful thing about that is that that allows for innovation from the large players such as Honeywell and SAP, but it also allows for smaller players to come in and innovate within areas where we are not able to. And it also puts pressure on us as large vendors to not get complacent. That we have to continue to adapt and we have to continue to move. And as long as we do that, there is enormous opportunities for us in order to be able to do that. And we see this in a really short and easy, tangible way. You see this in the shift from large upfront capital expenditures to more flexible, operationally funded expenses. So robotics as a service, technology as a service, software as a service, platform as a service. We talk about voice as a service, so that you have the flexibility to deploy these things when you need to, and then take them back when you don't need to. So when you have a surge in demand, like what we've seen right now, you have the elasticity that the cloud service providers have been talking about, elastic computing. You can bring these things into the physical world to be flexible and nimble to support what you're doing and actually truly be democratic in your technology choices and in your supply chain capabilities, and ultimately in what your workers are able to deliver to your consumers.
Gives a lot of confidence that in the future scheme of things, that whether you are small or big, based on your kind of business, you can always plug and fit and choose and go ahead and create an automation for yourself and start fulfilling your order positions very well. Thanks, James, for that. So that brings towards end of this webinar to an extent that we have touched upon so many aspects of the need for automation and need for e-commerce. So my question to all of you, I'll go one by one. So how do you look at now the future is evolving in terms of e-commerce and automation as we go along? So Rajiv, can you step in and give your thoughts, final thoughts to this?
Yeah, so my final thoughts are, I imagine the future supply chain as a living organism. And as there's a philosophical saying, there are 5 layers for any living organism. First layer is the physical layer which we have crossed, all the equipments, physical equipments. Second is the energy layer, where we have all the automation information flowing through these layers. So we have crossed that already. The third is where we have the mind, the intelligence, which I think we are on the cusp of it right now with a lot of data and our ability to get insights from data. The intelligence which resides in the human mind is now being captured in systems. So I believe we are on the cusp of reaching the third layer. What will be important once we reach the third layer is to have the intellect layer, the awareness, and make sure that the purpose for which we use this is right. Otherwise, we could do more harm than good. And once we reach the fourth layer in the morning to realize, and that is how I imagine the future of supply chain.
Very nice. So Asim, your take?
Thank you for this. Right. So I think Rajiv ji has covered it very well. I think just to further simplify it to an analogy that we can all understand is that, I see the future being created like an Android platform. So there would be a platform that no matter what your hardware is, you can connect onto it, whether it's a Samsung or an MI or whatever, it's going to get connected to it. The end user is going to be the king. They're going to be the consumers, and they will drive. They don't want to stick to something. They want the most flexible, the most adaptive. So this Android platform has to come into our world. And I think that's the vision for all of us, and most importantly, companies like SAP, to get to that place where they're agnostic. It's it's absolutely what the customer wants, no matter what size, how big, how small, but they can do it. Thank you.
So I will call it empathetic technology. Covering everybody, it's not the big guns to buy it. So what about it, Anand? Can you throw some light as future unfolds? Yeah, you're not there? Veer, will you be able to give us some? No,
for us, the future of supply chain is basically the optimal use of the resources, so which can fulfill the continuous or the ever-changing needs of customers. So when I say optimal, that means if we are able to use less amount of space, less amount of energy, less number of people, and less fuel to cater more demanding customers. So nowadays, if you see the customers, anyway, it's a core of every business, but now they have become their demands are quite high. So earlier, when you used to say, yeah, this is the new model which is coming, people can wait for 6 months, 7 months, but now they can't wait for single minute for anything. So the future lies in delivering all these things to customer at the eye-blink speed. So as I say, so all this is only possible with the properly use of all the technologies which are available. So whether it's a hard automation, soft automation, flexible automation, but at the end of the day, it has to be used properly, right? So it is not like this, we can keep on pushing of one kind of automation to customers. So the future lies in whoever use all these technologies properly will be the winner. And when I say the future of supply chain will be more reliable, more robust, without manpower, this is the future. Because in future, we will see more of the things happening like what we are facing right now. So it will become a big problem. So we need to make systems which can run without human intervention for certain duration of time. This is what the future is. So we need to become a little more independent in this sense.
Beautiful. So it's not the human replacement, it is the human being enabled much better. So I think I would also like to hear from James. James talked about so much of UX on this topic. James, how do you think?
Yeah, I would say I agree, and I think I guess I would leave this this session, which has been great and really thought provoking, with the idea that we continue to need to design our systems in a worker-centric world. And that's from the worker's view as well as from an ethics perspective. So just as all the other panelists have talked about, again, if you're automating, automate from the perspective of how do those workers play into this. Be thoughtful about that, be conscious of it, and provide the tools for those workers to be successful in the jobs that we're asking them to do. And that allows us to be successful as supply chain leaders and successful as ethicists, so that we are actually handling this and managing our workforce in a way that they can be most successful, and providing them the tools like Honeywell Voice, like SAP, like automation, that brings those things together in a way that's powerful.
Beautiful. I'd like to take a little peek onto George's mind, how SAP is thinking. You have told about it, but a little bit of visualization about future in automation and e-commerce.
I'm not sure if I emphasized on it, but I'm personally convinced the future supply chain is highly connected. Not like WMS layers, but also connected companies into each other. When the truck leaves at your premise, the other company knows exactly when it will be there. We will exchange more information, not only paperwork and email, but also we have all the data is there. We have to connect it, make it consumable, and we can optimize our supply chains on this and reduce buffers. I'm fully convinced, like the colleague said, supply chain will be intelligent, whether it's the user interface, guiding the people, supporting the people, whether it's the planning and operation on it. People will expect systems and supply chains to guide and come up with proposals. And Maybe this is typically to Germany or Europe. I'm also convinced the supply chain will be more green in the future. There will be a demand to share resources. Why sending half a truck hundreds of miles to the country? People will share this more, as we might see it at Uber or Airbnb. People share even bicycles here in my city. So I'm also convinced that supply chain will be very, very connected and shared supply chain in the future.
One Uberization of supply chain, probably. so the data is used, data is crunched, and the utility and utilizations is also taken out. Anand, do you have any last word for us? Anand is not there.
So I think hard to top.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
so no,
yes.
I was just saying hard to sort of say anything different from what my other colleagues have said here. True, I'm sure the future of supply chain is interconnected and across. So not just between customers and suppliers, but between corporations themselves, and that itself will lend to collaboration, which will make supply chains greener, like what Jörg was talking about. So when and that's small things have started happening, I think, in the COVID period, because just to sort of tide over the current problems, a lot of non-competing supply chains have begun to collaborate. And I think it's just accelerated that process of collaborations between supply chain. So yeah, I think that's where the future is, connected supply chains.
Beautiful. I think we have come to a very nice imagination now, how neural it is, how collaborative it is, how ubiquitous it is, how supportive, and how it has got empathetic towards the last mile users or the workers on the line. But I remember once I was talking about RPA in some seminar, and somebody just got very little wild, and he says, "Are you telling that human beings are going to be replaced by automation?" So somehow this fear keeps coming, The more and more automation, which in India we have a lot of big population and we have such a cheap labor force available. Why automation? I mean, is it going to replace them, or how is it going to pan out? Gandhi, do you have any thoughts on this process, on this question? Gandhi, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Is automation going to replace humans?
It's a tough question, but I will go back to what Azim was referring to. I don't think it's there will be I think we as business leaders should foresee some reduction in manpower, and you would see that, but at the same time, as more and more businesses are going to embark on automation and bring more efficiency, speed, and agility in terms of how they do their businesses, I believe it's going to be a huge task for business leaders and supply chain leaders to enable their workforce to leverage them more efficiently to run their businesses going forward, or warehouse operations going forward. So I don't think it's going to be a reduction forces, but I think they want to be more smart enough to determine what kind of workforces they need in terms of running their operations efficiently. And technology is going to do, for example, you talked about RPA. I mean, as these complexities in supply chain increases, I think the managers and operational leaders will need to divert their attention towards complex decision making and running their operations efficiently, wherein all these mundane tasks would be kind of diverted and towards leveraging robotic process automation kind of capability within their supply chain.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sandeep. I think we have taken quite a large time now. We have done this exploration together. Any questions from the audience, please? Any audience questions? So let me take up some questions. Everything is answered. Okay. Question 2 for Mr. BC. Why do you see the usage of AI in warehouse operation for increasing the productivity? This is from Mr. Sunil Sarkar.
There are a lot of places where we are using AI or natural language processing. So if you see, so all our pick by voice, we use natural language processing. All our mobile robots, whether it's a fleet management or a navigation like human beings, so a lot of AI engines we are using. So in this way, apart from this, whenever it comes to warehouse control system. So earlier people used to do simulation when they used to set up some factory, whether something will wrong happen or not. But nowadays we need live simulation. So it's like on the go simulation and need to change the things accordingly. So in all this sense, we are dependent upon all these new technologies like AI and all these things. So in this way, the penetration is quite a lot in warehouse industry now.
Okay. So there is one more question from Rajesh Gurchale from Bombay Dine. Hello, panel. This is Rajneesh from Bombay Dine. Having said about automation, what is that one thing that organizations have to believe in going ahead for automation, although knowing that automation is one of the growth pillars? So Rajiv Jorapur has answered this question. Anybody wants to take up again and answer this? Okay, let me take one more question.
I would like to say a couple of things about this. So normally, not in India, everywhere else, people see automation as a replacement of human being. But, so if we see from that point of view, in lot of emerging market, the economies where labor is quite cheap, it will be very difficult to justify automation. But if we see the complete picture, like kind of accuracies it is bringing into the system, the agility which it is bringing into the system. So if you see all these things, then definitely means you will be able to make the case. And apart from this, there was another question, about human beings replaced by automation. So what I will say, so human beings and robots are actually not replacing. So robots are actually not replacing human beings. We all this automation or robots are doing things for which human beings are not made to do. So if you go to any typical warehouse, what human beings are doing there? They are lifting 30 kg, 40 kg for continuously 8 hours. So are human beings made for all these things? So all these things for which human beings are made to do a lot of intellectual stuff. That's the reason we have far more superior brain than the all other animals. So we are supposed to do something else. So all these things which are laborious and continuous has to be done by robots or automation. Thank you.
Yes. So there is one Mr. Sumi Saraf. He would like to know, as the world progresses into the new normal, would like to understand how the supply chain will undergo changes, especially in context of commercial vehicles. Anyone to please answer this question? It's just put to the all panelists. If Rajiv, can you take up this question?
Yeah, for me, whether it is commercial vehicles or whether it is any other industry, I believe the future supply chain will not be linear and layered the way it is now. And it will be more like a network. And this concept of tier 1, tier 2, all those will get dismantled. Especially in commercial vehicles, the way things are panning out, I would imagine even manufacturing factories undergoing a massive change with a lot of lot of value-added activities happening outside the core manufacturing unit. And maybe a vehicle also gets assembled at the customer's place or at the dealer's place, and the factory is only sort of designing and ordering parts to be shipped from the different vendors manufacturing the components and assembling at the customer's place. So that's how I see it. Gina, I think you are mute.
I'm sorry. So this is a question from Mr. Ojas Chaya. He's asking, he's from L&T Limited. How about enhancing local homegrown technology products content for the automations? I think I'll put this question to both of them, Asim as well as Beer. Can Indian solution provider be a techno-commercially competitive?
This is Asim. I think so. Absolutely. I mean, technology, what it used to be, that only a few had it, and they would, they would patent it and so on and so forth, is not the case anymore. I think there's a big democratization in technology. There is easy access. I will go back to what I was saying as the Android platform that is going to be made. So it wouldn't matter what you have. So I think local players would eventually, if they can, understand the customer better, think of what they would justify for them to invest in and create products and solutions to that matter, they can definitely succeed. And it's not that everything they have to make. They can always assemble. They can get different parts of the world, assemble it to make a unique product fit for the Indian market. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So my next question, anybody else? Okay.
Yeah, Rajiv.
So one is go ahead.
I was just saying it's nothing about local or global. It's all about so for a company when it do automation, it's about so no company says like we need to buy local or global. It's about like how you are able to solve the problem or to solve the issue, which can justify ROI or IRR. So that has to be clear. But now, if you see, like innovation, there are two kinds of products. Like one is a legacy product, which is like being used in the industry from last 30, 40, 50 years. And
okay.
There is a new age product.
So I think we have come to an end of this webinar. Next, all the rest of the questions we can take offline. And we have answered a lot of questions now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will hand over now to the organizers.
Okay, thank you very much, Rajiv. This indeed ends our webinar. Sorry to be slightly over time. And also thank you, panel, of course. And thank you, audience, for spending the last 1.5 hours plus with us. Soon you will receive an email with the recording link in it. And if you want to have a private conversation with Stellium or SAP, please do not hesitate to reach out. And enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.